And so.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
Yeah.
You're on top of that because that's what we're working on now. Good
Okay,
news.
that's cool.
Okay, it looks like a nice group shaping up.
Yeah. Who have you heard
Yeah.
from?
I don't want to say people's names because I don't want to make them. People say,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, they don't like the public announcement. But the people,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the predictable suspects, and it looks really good.
All right, that's cool. Yeah. No, because I mean, anything can change. Everything, it's very volatile. I'm sure. Because people say that, people say that it is not working out.
Look, we're opening up. We're having a derech year next year, and we're optimistic and going full speed ahead.
Are you looking for Madrichim?
The travel is open. That's the problem.
Okay, we'll do our best. Right, we're being optimistic. What Eitan?
Are they looking for Madrichim?
No, sounds great. Talk to Rabbi Brickman.
All right.
Amazing.
Does it look like more people are gonna come or less people due to the
I'm not on top of that at all. And honestly, I think, like most of us find ourselves, with the exception possibly of Jakob Greenspan, who just gets to study all the time anyway, and so his life is not qualitatively changed. But most people just don't know what's going to be from week to week. The restrictions have lifted drastically in Israel this week.
Yeah, Israel's partying. Israel's having a good time.
Yeah, but that doesn't leave me with such a great feeling. I don't know. It's not like we're out of this thing. But you wouldn't know that sometimes by seeing people, kind of throw their masks off and not always so careful.
Yeah.
Fine. We ready to get down to business? Anybody have anything? One question of substance or interest before we get started? Well, okay. This is what happens. This is notorious, right? Because then, of course, the random questions come when it's already inappropriate to ask them. Fine. One of my students actually started taking to Yosef Yom Tobian. Showed me today. He's got a little. I'm very proud of him. He's got a little pocket pad of paper. Carries around with him, and every time he has a thought, he writes it down. Question, writes it down. It's a great way to be. Should always keep these things. What's yours, Eitan?
I was gonna actually ask for a little Shavuos chizuk, because for those that's trying to learn all night, it's gonna be very different this year. We don't have the base measures to keep us motivated.
Eitan, we might have a few people over if you're interested. We right here in Lago. Just a few 2 or 3 people. So for sure you should come over. You're gonna have a little
great.
A bunch of shafers and stuff.
But so for the average person this year, it seems like most of them are going to be learning B'Yechidus. So I don't know. I guess just how to do that best, because it's obviously much more difficult than learning with Chavrusa or the like.
For sure. Hi, Dovi. Dovi, Rabbi Brickman, and I were both because I guess you go to his class too. Shammai, you're not in his class. But Rabbi Brickman and I were both trading our enjoyment. I'm enjoying everybody here, but you're the one person who we both share, so we were felling over you. Ed, welcome. Eitan just asked for some Shavuos chizuk because people are sort of out of sorts and not in their usual routine. Pointing out maybe the obvious that it's a beautiful minhag to stay up all night long and learn. It's not an obligation. And I will do it. We went last year to yeshiva for Shavuos. Of course, I stayed up. And but when I'm home, even though we're having the whole family over and we're going to have our own seder, we're going to do stuff, I don't anticipate staying up all night. I just find personally, since I feel like, every day is an opportunity and an avoda. I want to serve Hashem. I want to learn His Torah. I want to celebrate His Torah. And I don't do so well. I don't know, but hit the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock mark in the morning. My Torah is not in its peak form. I get tired. And so what's the point? And then especially, I've always commented on this, that you ever notice that not only is Shavuos morning davening among the longest we have of the year, but it's filled with some of the biggest tongue twisters. Anybody for Agdamos? You know what I'm talking about? Agdamos, go look it up, right? It's so hard. And so you're just falling over yourself in fatigue trying to just, blurt it out. Right, which is not the optimal way to daven, especially at a time that commemorates Matan Torah. So I try to get a good night's sleep and then learn Stark, for much of the day as much as I possibly can. That's one approach. I know I'm not the only one.
I'm with you on that one. I don't think I'm going to stay up. I'm with you on that one. I don't think I'm going to stay up.
Yeah. Look, if you can find a venue, hi Ezra Dubov, if you could find a venue, you know, a chevra as nice as Shammai Davidovich and go to his house, you know, that, you know, I'd take your invitation, Shammai. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was
if there's
invited.
something or like going to the yeshiva, which I love, and I love teaching. It's a great way for me to learn. Yosemi Rabosai Chaverai, Yosemi Chaverai Talmidai. So, you know, if you find something like that that's going to chazik you, by all means. But if not, yeah, Ezra Schwartz, that's, you know, learn in your optimal way and do it, you know, find a way, find good chavrusas, you know, maybe put together a chabura. But, you know, we're celebrating the Torah. So you should do that with Gishmak in a way that you're going to give it your best. And it's a 2-dayer too. I mean, it goes it goes into Shabbos. So we're all keeping 2 days together for a change. Those of you, of course, in self-imposed exile, and we privileged ones, right, Ari? Okay.
Yes.
Wait, what day is
Come to
what day is
Israel.
Shavuos?
Stay in Israel.
Agreed.
What Shavuos is next Erev Shabbos and Shabbos, a week and a couple days from now.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Good. Hi, Aviel.
Hi, Rabbi.
And hi, Ed. Okay. We have, by the way, this is not a commercial because it's whatever anybody wants to do. Some of the best minutes of our sessions together take place after everybody's signed out. We have like informal discussions on every topic. So anybody, whoever wants to do that. Open up Sefer Iyov where we left off last night. We're in the 32nd chapter. We covered some ground yesterday, but superficially and intentionally so. And we're in the 32nd chapter. We finally meet a core pivotal figure, really, whose name is Iyov. And we introduced him last night. I refer you to what we talked about there. Hi, Ben Richmond. By the way, I find this, I still find this kind of frustrating because I would love to schmooze with some of you. If anybody ever wants to be in touch, I feel like a little overwhelmed, like who do I get in touch with first? But if you take the initiative and want to touch base, you want to have a Zoom session one-on-one, and we can figure out a time. So by all means, I'd love to. Yeah, so everybody's got the Sefer Iyov. Now look, I'm going to read the English. This is very refreshingly straightforward prose that we'll find in describing what happens, this change of venue now. We read as follows. These three men then refrained from answering Iyov further, meaning the boxing match has been, is officially over. And Eliphaz, Bildad, and so far passed from the scene. I mean, actually, no, they're going to be rebuked. They must be around somewhere, but we don't see them openly. So they refrain from answering Iyov further, for in his own eyes, he was righteous. So the Navi, Moshe Rabbeinu, is indeed our author. So Moshe is giving us some behind-the-scenes information. It sounds like, based on this pasuk, they'd thrown up his hands. I mean, this guy is hopeless. He just, he's full of himself. He just feels that, there's nothing wrong with him. And what can we do to him? And then suddenly bursting forth, pasuk 2, the anger of Eliu, son of Barachel, the Buzi, from the Ram family. We suggested yesterday, perhaps Avram. Remember, we talked about this afterwards. Ari Swift, with his great memory, remembers many sessions ago that he's identified alternately as either Yitzchak, well, that would put him in the Ram family for sure. He's also possibly Bilam, which is a little bit surprising because he's Eliu's tzaddik and Bilam was not. But he's Bilam in his prophetic mode, when he's really a vocal piece for Hashem. So I'm sorry, I'll go back to the pasuk. The anger of Iyov flared up. It flared up against Iyov because he considered himself to be more in the right than Hashem. We've heard Iyov, if you recall, Iyov said, well, if we were to go into Beis Din, let's see how each of us would fare Hashem. He's taking on Hashem as it were as a peer. The Gemara, in one of its quotable phrase, one of its many quotable phrases, is Chavrusa klape shmaya. What are you, Hashem's Chavrusa? You're his peer. Evidently, on some level, Iyov felt entitled, felt that he was on that level. Pasuk 3, And against his three friends, Elihu's anger flared because they were unable to find an appropriate answer, thus pronouncing Iyov wicked. That's actually really ripe with meaning. Anybody want to take a shot at interpreting that? Want me to say it one more time? Listen to the nuance in the pasuk. Elihu, again, is his anger flared up against his three friends. His anger flared up because they were unable to find an appropriate answer, thus pronouncing Iyov wicked.
They didn't attempt to help him, but rather just like were saying he was wrong. Instead of trying to console him and give him the right, tell him the right perspective to have in this scenario.
Right. Good. Good.
They definitely shared their perspective.
On the constellation charts there, they failed miserably. That's been clear, right? As much as even the content of their words has some merit, but they certainly don't get through to Iyov on any level, right? But I think there's something more here too. Anybody else?
Because they can't console Iyov. Iyov's bad?
Well, no. Think about it. It's so typical. I mean, there's so much, as we said, nuanced observation of human nature here. I find this so relatable. When you get frustrated with somebody, when you can't get through, when you can't get your agenda across, oh, well, I can't do anything with you. You're just from Russia.
Yeah, that makes them really crummy friends.
Well, that without saying, but I'm saying just as a human dynamic, it's so we do this. We try to vilify people. We try to assess good guys, bad guys. Many of you have heard my presentation on Hasidim and Misnagdim, and my attempt in the beginning of the discussion to say this is one of those where the good guys and bad guys are not entirely clear. And even so, people will try to paint it in simplistic black and white terms, because that's how our minds kind of naturally we gravitate towards that. And if we can't beat them, we hate them, right? So they're Elihu then is angry. They're dismissing him as a Russia instead of actually taking his comments seriously and trying to engage him on a very specific level. It also reminds me of a tendency in chinuch or in kiruv of people to give sort of canned answers, one size fits all, which are often inadequate. You have to deal with people. You have to hear what people have to say, even if your answers are not quite satisfying always, because sometimes people's questions are better than your answers, or alternately, sometimes they can't hear it. Even if your answers are excellent, but they're not receptive to them, fine. But then there's a tendency to sort of write them off. One of my stories is the Kiruv program, where they sort of deceptive Kiruv program where they weren't really telling the participants that they were being makarived. Something I don't agree with in general, and then they inevitably had to bring in the feminist speaker, the woman addressing feminism, and the very intelligent young women's questions on feminism, in which she proceeded to basically blithely ignore everything that they had to say, not address the content of their questions. And the gist, I only got this from the women themselves afterwards. They were complaining. The women just kept saying, well, of course, I'm a very happy Jewish woman. I'm very fulfilled, and I live a very meaningful life. So the non-religious participant said, we're thrilled for you. I mean, in reflection, she said, we're thrilled for her. Now, could you pay attention to our questions? Right? And so there's a sense that almost Iyov and his friends were talking past each other, and that human connection thing never really happened. And Elihu is livid, and he's been listening this whole time. Let's continue. Yeah. 4, Elihu bided his time to address Iyov. We mentioned this yesterday. He's been standing in the sidelines, for they were older than he. And that's, in fact, correct. Al pi din, al pi halacha, you should defer to your elders. Elihu noticed that the 3 men had no appropriate answer, and so his anger flared. So Elihu, son of Barachel, again he's identified, the Buzi, declared, I am young in days, and you are old. Because of this, I trembled, and I was afraid of declaring my ideas to you. Don't know about you. I'm immediately engaged because of his humility, his deference, his silence, but now he feels no choice. Almost fulfillment of the Mishnah, "B'makom she'eni shishtadel liosish." None of you people are okay. I have no choice. I have to speak up. And you do sometimes, and he does. Pasuk 7, I had thought, let days have their say. Let years dispense wisdom. Meaning referring, you guys have all the knowledge and wisdom you've accumulated. Who am I? 8, but truly it is a kind of prophecy in man. The breath of Hashem, or Shakai, inspires them with understanding. Therefore, there are not many who are truly wise. Oldsters do not necessarily understand justice. Not every zaken is a zaken, he's saying essentially. And so he winds up and lets them have it. Let's consider some of the psukim inside.
Does anyone talk about why the Shakai name is used here?
That's a good question. Let's take a peek. Anybody has Mefarshim around and handy? It's Pasuk 8, if anybody wants to look. Yeah, I don't have anything here. Just without answering the question, but I'll give you a little bit of context at least. Shakai, with the Daled, is referring to that quality in Hashem that provides for us. As the name indeed suggests, that he gives us he gives us everything, all of our needs. As we say the bracha in Birkas HaShachar, Shasali Kol Tzorki. So that quality of totally satisfying him. So Hashem inspires them with understanding, meaning older people should have that completeness, that sense of a total understanding and an intuitive wisdom. And of course, he feels that the others have failed. A little bit the Ramban, and we've been quoting the Ramban extensively. That's because he's the Ramban, and whatever you do in life, always quote the Ramban extensively. It's a really good habit. So the Ramban, not here actually, he has another book. It's called the Torah Ha'adam. And there he discusses Iyov, and I'm quoting him now. He says, because he's elaborating on the failure of the three friends and Eliav's disenchantment with them. Ramban says, by focusing on each of their positions, as they did, as we saw, so narrowly, they basically put Iyov in a corner, left him no room to really maneuver, and like a trapped animal, they almost forced him to respond as he did. Parents sometimes, let's say, or educators have to be careful with this, because you want to get over a certain message, you want to discipline your child, but in your zeal to be right and to put the child in his place, sometimes a parent can break a child. I refer you to the wonderful parenting book, the contemporary parenting book put out by the Alei Shor, Rav Shlomo Wolbe, who talks about the importance of binyan and smicha, as he calls it, in metaphors, that you should, certainly sometimes you have to build a child, and sometimes that requires direct instruction. This is what you should do. But the more nuanced and equally necessary art of parenting involves smicha, which it means actually growing, but I think the idea is nurturing, so that you allow the right environment and context so that the child comes to the conclusion for himself. Because if you're always the one telling them, have kavanah when you pray, if the child never achieves that insight or never comes to that naturally, you haven't really done much. You've just forced the child. And when they come of age, they run away. So there is that sense of coming down with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, and coming to impart their ideas on Iyov, which produces the opposite effect. It's also similar. This is kind of a familiar idea. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this. It's similar to that. You ever get into a debate where you're fighting? I think we might have even referred to this. You're fighting so intensely that the point now is not really about what you're arguing about as much as just winning the debate. And you find yourself even saying things you don't even believe in order to get, the upper hand in the exchange. That resonates with anybody? Guilty as charged. I plead guilty. But when if you were to think with some kind of objective distance and what's really going on here and what are we really putting over? We said this the other day. Even though we're not about results, I mean, a lot of life is failure, and a lot of the time we have to just pick up the pieces and learn from our failures. But we did debate this idea, if you recall, and it's relevant right now again, that when it comes to interpersonal dynamics, you don't know for sure, but you always have to project. You always have to figure out, okay, I'm about to say something to somebody, maybe I'm going to give rebuke. How will this person possibly hear this? And try to imagine all the scenarios, play it through. Because if you just blurt things out like the average guy and you don't consider the impact of your words, you could actually do considerable harm. Yeah, so that's the Ramban's overall analysis, why Iyov is so disenchanted with the friends and the real mistakes that they made. The Mitsudos, also early on here in the third pasuk. You know who the Mitsudos was? Familiar? Mitsudos is, he has two different perushim. Mitsudos Tzion and Mitsudos. No, David. Mitsudos Tzion, Mitsudos David. It's really understood in much of Tanakh to be more Pashup Pshat than Rashi. Meaning, if you really want the simple meaning of the text, translations of words and things like that, you go to the Mitsudos. That's what's accepted in the world of Parshanus, of learning the commentaries. So the Mitsudos says this to say, he says, Iyov's waited, evidently this entire time, in silence. It's one of those like painful silences. You want to speak up, but no, I'm going to hold back right now. You can almost feel him trying to hold back. As he said, it's in deference to the elders. And it's Iyov, and it's in such stark contrast with the friends who very sensitively is capable with his words now. He's the one who moves Iyov away from the object at hand. Your plight, your evil, your wickedness, and you're in this position. Iyov's been stuck there. So it's Iyov who, with very, very gentle touch, he's able to somehow sway Iyov out of himself and into really the larger perspective, the larger truths about Hashem. And once he does that, he has the effect on Iyov. He manages to open him up and make him much more receptive. And once you're receptive, then you can hear everything else. You have to set the stage. You have to establish a relationship, a nice rapport with somebody, and then maybe he can hear. One thing at a time. Look, it's similar with all of our relationships. It's similar with students and Rebbes. We always quote Rabbi, who opened his shiurim with Mile de B'dichusa. He opened the shiur with words of humor. What's the value of the humor? What does that do when you're trying to engage with people on a serious level?
It makes them maybe more receptive to what you
Why? What's happened? What's the psychology of humor? When I tell a joke, okay, what's really just happened now?
Getting them to let down their guard, maybe.
Breaking the ice of awkwardness.
Right, you dispel awkwardness, like there's maybe tension in the air, you get rid of the tension. And also, if we can laugh together, so it establishes a certain commonality of interest and purpose. We're kind of all in this together. We like the same cheesy jokes, So it's the same kind of thing. That's what the Mitsudos is commenting on, that he manages, he's got the deft touch. He, for example, is the first human being at least. Look at the beginning of the 33rd chapter. See if you can see what I'm talking about. What is he the first one to do? He's the first one to use a certain word. It was really shocking too once you realize. The pasuk says, "V'ulam shmana Iyov milai v'chol tvarai ha'azina." What's the word that he says? It's so obvious; it's staring in your face, and you're missing it. Everybody sees the first pasuk in the 33rd chapter. He's the first one, the first human being, to call Iyov, Iyov. Isn't that fascinating? What effect does it have when you call a person by their name?
Very strong one.
Yeah, it specifies to the person only.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know you. We have a relationship. It's personal. It's sincere. I care about you. Right? Your name.
It's from Dale Carnegie.
What, Aviel?
Like there's like a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then one of the things he offers is like call a person by their name. It like opens up like they're much more receptive, more friendly. So it has a good effect.
Yeah.
On speak to them.
The book has got a lot of valuable insights. I'm familiar with it. I hate it also because like it's in the title. You get it all in the title. You know, you don't really care about the guy. You're just trying to win friends and influence people, so you get rich. That's the end game, no? Right? But I'm suggesting the exact opposite. Know the person's name as a basic kiyum of v'afta l'recha kamocha, because you want somebody to acknowledge your name and your humanity. Nothing to do with winning friends, influencing people, or getting your own self-promotion, taken care of.
Right.
Right. So Eliu calls him by his name. How basic, But okay, the others don't. The others overlook the Iyov in the Iyov.
Wait, what did his friends call him?
They don't. Talk about chutzpah, right?
Really? Like, how do they refer to him?
They don't. They talk. It's all content. No niceties, but niceties are part of life too. You have to go through them, and you have to, again, you have to see the human being. So he also look how gentle it is in the same pasuk, shmana, which is really untranslatable, but listen, please. It's very gentle, very soothing. Right? That's Eliu. That's how we're meant to understand him. He is, by most accounts, he's the ultimate nose ba'ol im chaveiro. That's a really important expression. If you don't know that expression, write it down now. Do yourself a favor. Who can give a good pithy definition of being nose ba'ol im chaveiro? Basic Judaism.
Bearing the burden of your friend, being with your
friend.
Translation.
What does it mean?
Being with someone in their burdens, suffering, all that.
It's more of that very human, very essential connection. It's calling them by their name. The real word that we would use for it in English would be empathy, but pure, true empathy, to the point that it's not just a platitude and a nicety to say, oh, I feel your pain, but actually you really, really feel the person's pain. Also, conversely, you feel their simcha, you share their simcha, you have such an other directedness that whatever the other person's going through, you're right there with them. Eliu somehow is able to establish that, and suddenly Iyov is, you can almost feel the weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. Remember yesterday we mentioned the pasuk, he's just pleading his friends, chaneni, chaneni, pity me. Treat me like a human being. Give me a hug. That's what he's telling. And Eliu finally knows enough to give him a hug, or at least metaphorically. He's nosa ba'ol. Key expression. You have to know it. More importantly, you have to do it. Something that most of us aren't particularly good at, because with all of our, talk about midos, most of us are still pretty much selfish jerks. So we're supposed to really care about one another. That's the end game in this life. And in a sense, we have a feeling that Eliu is preparing Iyov for a bigger confrontation that's coming just around the corner. Look at, if you would, the middle of the 33rd parak. It's chapter 33, pasuk 14. Just a little bit. We'll start reading it. Eliyahu now that he's actually established rapport and the humanity's there and he's there for Iyov, and you can almost picture him holding his hand. And now he winds up and goes, now here comes the message. I'll read a little bit in English. Now, I must declare to you, Eliyahu saying to Iyov, in this you're not correct, for Hashem is much greater than man. Why have you made a claim against him? Because he does not answer all man's questions? For Hashem will grant you communication, and even a second one for him who will not see him. In a dream, a vision of the night, when slumber envelops man, when he dozes upon the bed, then does he, capital H, Hashem, make himself heard by man, or shackle him with pain, to immobilize man from action, to place pride beyond his reach. And he goes on. He puts Iyov very much in the context of what it is to be a human being in this world, finite, subservient to Hashem, and the interaction between them. Here's what I promised you yesterday. It's these words, and further on, I'll give you more. I'll quote more explicitly. These words, the Ramban, who is very cautious in his words, very specific in trying to peg this down, he understands here what he calls a sod gadol misodos haTorah, a secret, mystical idea of the great secrets, really greater than the greatest secrets of the Torah, one that a person's intellect alone would never have discovered. Anybody know what it is? Did you figure it out overnight? I gave you some homework.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. It's in this chapter that the Ramban interprets something very big, so big he calls it Sod Gadol Misodos HaTorah. It's a secret that's greater than all the secrets of the Torah, an idea that the intellect alone would never discover. So I'll tell you, Ramban characterizes it, calls it Sod HaIbur Gilgul HaNeshamos, what we call in English
reincarnation.
Reincarnation of souls.
Yeah, reincarnation. Now, reincarnation is an idea that's intrinsic in most people's thought. Most of our Gedolim understand it as an implicit assumption of the way the universe works. We may all be reincarnated as in different ways and forms. This may be, for some of us, the umpteenth time around, and for others, maybe the first. We don't know. Nowhere is the idea explicitly mentioned in the Torah, and it's not explicitly mentioned in Tanakh, but the Ramban, well, you'll be the judge right now. I think it's persuasive, but the Ramban finds this idea of reincarnation here in Iyov, and it's a very big deal. He says the idea of reincarnation is people live lives that are not fully fulfilled. And by saying not fully fulfilled, we hear this today, and in an age of narcissism, where it's all about ourselves, people think, well, I'm not fully fulfilled because I always wanted to play Carnegie Hall, and if I wasn't able to do that, then I'm not fulfilled. This is not about getting your kicks or realizing your innermost dreams. I mean, that's fine and nice, but that's not the point. When the Ramban is describing imperfect lives, what he's saying is that we're each here, in many ways, well, it's the opposite idea. We're each here to fix something or some things. We have an opportunity in this world to make a major impact. Hashem gives us all the natural resources. If you ever consider, this is a very Kabbalistic idea, if you ever consider the idea that you are born in a certain time and a place, to a certain set of parents and siblings, circle of friends, social environment, you have a very specific face. that's meant to be your face. It's there so you can accomplish your particular function in this world. You have talents, you have interests. All of those pieces make up a whole. And what we're supposed to do is figure out what is our tachlis, what is our goal, what is our purpose in this world. It's supposed to have something to do with tikkun. We're supposed to fix something that perhaps no other creature can fix. Each of us is so uniquely qualified. We're supposed to do something. Apparently, some people do. They're big tzaddikim. And others do less, and others fail miserably. And the idea of reincarnation is that Hashem gives us another opportunity, another time around the bend, to fix what we messed up the first time. That's reincarnation. Here is how he hears it in the Psukim in Iyov, and then maybe we'll take a look at the subject of reincarnation in bigger terms. If you look at in chapter 33, a verse we just read in Pasuk 17, Yud Zayin, he says, referring to Hashem, to immobilize man from action, to place pride beyond his reach. Lasir Adam me'aseh ma'aseh ve'geva migever yechaseh. Ramban reads this a little differently. I don't think he would translate this pasuk quite like that. He understands this as an invitation through prophecy to come to the Sod, to come to this mystical secret. Right? He wants man to put aside, immobilize him from action, meaning put aside all the endeavors of your life in this world. Get rid of your arrogance, because with arrogance, you're not going to penetrate deep wisdom. And then you'll understand the fundamental idea. He refers to man as a tool to a greater end. A body, a geva is another term for body, which is a tool for the neshama, and that neshama will be removed. Lasir Adam, he wants to take the neshama out of the body to bring it to greater effect. And now look immediately at the next pasuk 18. Thereby he spares him the grave, his life, from being subject to the sword. What does that mean? He spares him the grave. According to the Ramban, Hashem will resurrect the soul from the grave and bring him back to this world. Why? So that, Ramban says, he will not be subject to eternal perdition. Because, if you come around and you're given an opportunity and you fail miserably to achieve what you're supposed to achieve in this world, so then you're going to be in deep trouble. As the pasuk says, v'chayuso me'avor b'shalach, right? So that you'll be subject to the sword, meaning the ultimate sword, if you don't have another time around. Not to say these psukim are a little bit hard to understand on their own, but once you start to see them in the Ramban's reading, interpretation, they really follow very smoothly together. Skip to 25. He says, his flesh has revived from its trembling. He is set to return to the days of his youth. Okay, that's describing the process of coming back into a new body. 26, when he entreats Hashem, thus soliciting his favor, appearing before him in prayer, then will he recompense men according to his righteousness. What does that mean? He will Hashem will recompense men according to his tzidkus, meaning everybody will get their just rewards. The big tzaddikim, they're there. They got it. They're sealed and signed in this book of life. The rest of us, Beinonim, Hashem gives us lots of separate chances, sometimes in another form, in another life.
So
even the Ramban says, yeah, go ahead.
How do we relate to the Rambam then in Hilchos Shiva when he says there really is no Beinoni, because you're either, if you're more than 50%, then you're tzaddik, and if you're less than 50%, you're a rasha. Doesn't seem like these two hashkafos go hand in hand.
Right.
All right.
That's okay. I'm not sure it's quite accurate what you said, but I don't want to digress too much from it because I want to stay focused on reincarnation right now. So the idea here is that a person's going to have his recompense. Everything's going to come out, and if not in this lifetime, so in another one. Even if he's blameless in one life, and therefore he's going. And, this is actually. I'm sorry. Let me give you a little bit of preparation in this. Reincarnation is one way of dealing with the heavy, deep questions we've been probing ever since we started Iyov. Because consider, why might a person who, by all accounts, seems totally blameless go through terrible, torturous suffering? It may have nothing to do with his present life. It may have everything to do with a previous life that he botched, that he messed up. Iyov, that could be an answer to all of your questions. You may be innocent, but that may just be this time around. Right? If a man then accepts, consider again, if you accept your suffering gracefully, you're going to be rewarded. You're going to be rewarded. Wow. As I say reward, my daughter brings a freshly baked chocolate cookie. But I think it's going to be a little bit deeper, the ultimate reward, although I'll tell you how this one tastes.
I'll take a cookie.
Yeah, here, take it. Oh, it's really hot. Okay, enough of this. Yeah, a little bit more in the Ramban, and I want to again go into a little bit in reincarnation. What we learn. Look at 29. Pasuk 29, we learn all this Hashem will do for man. Listen to this pasuk. All this, well, let's do it in Hebrew. Hein kol eila yifalkel pa'amayim shalosh im gaver. What does that mean if not what the Ramban is saying? I'm obviously very persuaded. All this Hashem will do for man, even 2 or 3 times. Well, which times? If not in this lifetime, maybe multiple lifetimes. Hashem, as it were, repeats the Gilgulim to give us as many chances as we need till we finally get it, till we finally figure it out. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background, a little more so. Some of you may remember this. This is one of my files on Gilgul Neshamos. Gilgul Neshamos, I mentioned, is not mentioned explicitly in the Tanakh, nor in Shas. That's striking. Not Shas, of course, is the whole range of Talmud, Midrashim. It's not cited in Rambam's 13 Ikari Emuna, Ani Ma'amin. This is the source. Ramban and others see it, but there are other sources too. The other primary source really is the Zohar, the great book of Kabbalah. It's referred to, for example, it comes up all the time though in our lives. If you look closely at the Yom Kippur Machzor, it's connected to the 10 martyrs as being kaparos for whom? They were an early iteration. They're coming back now.
The 10 tribes.
You got it. Famous, right? They're the 10 neshamos of Yosef's brothers who sold Yosef and are now getting their final recompense. I should mention also, it's the mainstream concept that's widely embraced. There are a few who reject the idea. They're not small. Rav Sadia Gaon writes about it, and in his great early book of philosophy called Emunos Videos, he says it's not. He doesn't see it as an intrinsic idea. Rav Hai Gaon is considered the last of the Gaonim, disputes him and says it absolutely is. Some of the other big names, the Radak, Rav Chazdai Kreskis, Rav Yosef Albo. The Zohar, though, is really unavoidable. I'll just quote a little bit of the Zohar. The Zohar says, for example, as long as a person is unsuccessful in his purpose in this world, Hashem uproots him and replants him, sometimes over and over again. This is basic assumption made by most of the Mekubalim, certainly the Arizal at the forefront, but also by the Baal Shem Tov and the Vilna Gaon. I think a great one-liner, I don't ordinarily include quotations from non-Jews, but this one is priceless. Some of you might recall it. It's from an anti-Semite from the 18th century by the name of Voltaire. But he had this to say about the concept of reincarnation. After all, it's no more surprising to be born twice than it is to be born once. I mean, once you're in awe over the wonders of creation, what's the difference? Here's anybody has comments so far? Are you with me? I'm all over this topic. I think this is fascinating. I hope it gives you food for thought and you have what to share tomorrow coming back, because we're not going to finish it tonight. Let me give you a little bit more about what reincarnation is about. Comes with Chaim Vital, of course, is the major source of all the Arizal's teachings. He records the Arizal's ideas. He elaborates on everything we said, but he goes deeper. Every interaction in this life is based on a previous interaction in a different life that we need to fix. This is actually revelatory, if you think about it that way. It makes us look at everything very differently. Because again, I can't be so narrow and cause-effect. Well, I don't know about balancing. Did I do my taxes last year correctly? It may very well be. I'm suffering now because I didn't do my taxes. I have to consider that option, certainly. But if this is also true, that somehow what's going on right now is a replica of something that happened at another time, in another iteration, okay, it broadens my horizons. This idea actually is not fatalistic. It's actually very hopeful, because it shows us that Hashem is, as it were, rooting for us and hoping that we finally figure out the right way in life. It's not necessarily a punishment, and it's not necessarily a reward either. It is on the perspective of, Hashem wanting our neshamas to reach their full fruition. On that level, it is a kind of reward, but it's not intended as such. It's intended because Hashem really holds out the best hopes for us. So sometimes you can see a person so far down in his addictions, in his terrible habits, that in a sense, maybe in one life, one go-around, he's too stuck to fix himself. Okay, so Hashem shakes him out and puts him in another body. Somebody's gonna say?
Yeah. So would a reincarnation occur before a person would go to Gehenna? Do we know? If they were on the way there, Hashem throws them a bone by reincarnating them instead of that.
I think that the problem with the question is that it presumes time. What do I mean? We go through this world in a linear time frame, beginning, middle, and end. We also know our brains can't really wrap around this concept, but we know that Hashem is not within time. Time is necessarily a construct of the physical world, but it's not. Hashem is infinite, so he's not limited in time or space. And yet your question presumes a sequence. Gehenna and or reincarnation, when in fact, I'm sorry if this blows you away a little bit, but what if the concept is that they're all happening simultaneously?
How that work though?
I have no idea. I'm only pointing out that these questions are to some degree beyond us. And so they're given to us as a reframing, as a way of trying to organize our thoughts on a grander scale.
Okay.
I'll continue. I'm going a little bit more on Rav Chaim Vital for tonight. The idea is purely focused on tikkun, fixing. We're supposed to fix our neshama. If each of us fixes our neshama, it goes out in concentric circles. We have an impact on the world. We know that's true. I'll give you just a simple example. You look at somebody who turns his life around for the better, and how it inspires so many people. Picture people from your experience in Derech who fit that, and you know what I'm talking about. So tikkun is not just private and personal, and when anybody's seriously engaged in it, it has reverberations. And so we see it as an expression of Hashem's compassion on us. There's an idea the Arizal talks about that each neshama can be reincarnated enough times so that we can fulfill all Taryag mitzvahs. If anybody's interested, I don't know if he's posting it, but I just now, 2 hours ago, gave a shiur on the Taryag mitzvahs in a different channel for Derech alumni.
Rabbi, how is that possible? Because aren't some mitzvahs only able to be done by like a melech or a kohen gadol, and there've only been so many of those?
If you have reincarnation, so great, you're covered. You'll try all kinds of different experiences.
Right, but I'm saying there's only been so many kohen,
Can't explain it. Maybe they're only, the old line, there are only really 18 Jews in the world. The rest they do with mirrors.
No.
Yeah. I mean, we're in heavily abstract territory here. I think the minute you try to give some kind of linear interpretation, you run up against all kinds of questions. I don't know how deeply we want to go into this. I'm going a little bit more in detail than I expected myself, but this raises all kinds of questions. In the Tchias HaMeisim, if you reincarnated into several lives, which wife will you be with?
That's always something.
All of them.
Also, which part of you are you going to look like? Since
the better question is which mother-in-law you're going to have.
They addressed this.
All of them.
I'm not right now.
All
I'm not, but you can already hear if you have a mathematical mind, you're probably right now doing gymnastics and trying to figure out. Okay, wait a minute here, but don't stay with me. Let me finish. We're almost out of time. So let me at least give you this much to think about for one day. The Arizal taught that all physical and spiritual creations possess a particular bodily neshama. That sometimes the neshama can be exiled into lower beings. Sometimes they manifest as plants or stones, and it's all for some abstract tikkun. And later Kabbalists developed what this could mean, why we would come back in a vegetative or mineral form. Right, it kind of gives the old game of 20 questions a new twist, right? Animal, mineral, or vegetable? Well, how about all three? A reincarnated soul.
Cookie.
Yeah, I just thought about that. Okay, I'll come. Yeah, you can come back as my chocolate chip cookie. That'd be great.
I would love
once to. This is now we're going into classic ideas in Kabbalah. Of course, the goal of tikkun is to fix the broken kli. That's creation. That's what we're all doing in this world. And once all the sparks have been fixed and redeemed, and once we've realized our potential, then Mashiach is ready to come. Of the 5 different levels of the soul, it's the nefesh, which is the most basic, lowest. That's the one that's involved in the Gilgul process. I'll continue talking about Gilgul. We'll talk about Ibur as well, and I can't resist. We'll talk a little bit about Dibbux and what their function is in the world, and then we'll resume the narrative and come full circle and try to understand Eliu's full message to Iyov. As Asher said tomorrow night. Any thoughts and questions?
I guess the question is, how would Rav Sadia Gaon and the Radak and all those that don't believe in Gilgulim learn this last parak of Iyov?
Great. Eitan, you got homework. Right. I realize, but I know we're taking a lot longer than I planned. I'm enjoying it immensely. So I don't feel particular rush. Nobody else seems to be complaining. Maybe you'd like me to get on with it already. But I'm still somewhat rushing. And one of the disadvantages of my presentation here is I've already biased you. Once I've read it and the Ramban's read it for you, it's very hard to see these psukim as meaning anything else. I agree with you. Okay. Yeah.
It is said at the start of I don't know if it was 32 or like before this whole I don't know, it's not like a rant or anything by Elihu, but it said that man goes to sleep and then all this stuff happens. Is that like significant?
Yeah, that's a reference. Sleep is often equated with death. Remember, that's why we wash in the morning, because it's quasi-death and we're coming back to life. So sleep is certainly a metaphor for death, and in this case, possibly quite literal.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. All right. Anybody wants to leave? Great seeing you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
And anybody wants to stay, I'm here.
Yeah, Rabbi.
Have a good night, Rabbi.
You too.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Oh, it's the chevra. We've got a regular group going here.
Rabbi, just before I forget, so I'm actually flying to Aaron Ishida's wedding tomorrow. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm not.
Didn't you recorded me saying something to him, right?
Right. So
yeah, great.
So I'm not sure if I'll be able to be on Shiur to record it. So
thank you, of course. Yeah, right.
So if Rabbi just wants to record it and send it to me, I'll upload it, the good old-fashioned way.
Of the three of you, the three others of you who are here, are any of you adept in sending such a thing? I found I had great difficulty. It took me forever. If it's easier for you, I would give you the power to record it.
Yeah, I can if you want.
Amazing. And I'll give you, when you try to come on, if you can, on time, I'll immediately enable you to record, and then you could take over and send it to Eitan.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And so that would go again for Sunday as well, I think.
Okay, good. And you're available on Sunday?
I should be. If I'm not, I could find someone else. But yeah.
Yeah, great.
I should be.
Super.
Okay.
Thank you. Good. Any issue to throw around?
Here's another thing that bugged me. This happened a while ago. So, in case you didn't notice, Tila was in a red wedding dress when she got married.
It was a bit hard to miss.
Hello?
When I got married.
Rabbi, scared?
She was in a what dress?
She got married in a red wedding dress.
A red wedding dress. Okay.
So, regardless of what your opinions on it are, one of the rabbis that I knew was very concerned about it, and he brought up like, oh, you might get blacklisted from the community because such a thing. I really simplify one of the things which I've noticed to some degree in this idea of like blacklisting, and I mean, it seems to me just straight up lashon hara of certain elements, I guess. Like, first of all, it's not that big of a deal. Second of all, who's going to tell anyone?
Can I come in and respond?
Yeah.
Two reactions. One is I agree wholeheartedly. It's not an important thing. There was once a minhag not to wear red. We're not makpid on it nowadays.
Yeah.
It's definitely a statement, and it's not normal, to do that. But neither is it particularly important or terrible. The second statement I want to make unrelated to the first is that I don't think it's necessarily lashon hara if it's done l'shem shamayim, and sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But it's not inevitably lashon hara when a community, for whatever its discretion, whatever. I mean, I guess if they're big rabbanim who are doing it, to use the discretion and use communal pressures to force the people to toe the line. It runs against our democratic spirit that most of us grew up with, and our sense of civil liberties. I got to be me, right? And the notion that anybody would tell me, chutzpah, tell me what to do, runs counter to our intuition. But in all Jewish communities throughout history, until the modern era, that's exactly what happened. You remember the konea collar?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You'd sit. They would strap you in, and you would sit in the corridor outside the shul as people entered and exited, and they would spit on you when you didn't toe the line, when you didn't somehow listen to the rabbinic leaders. And they had many other tools at their disposal, including excommunication and whippings and other kinds of ways of trying to bring people around when they felt that it was important. So, I'm just responding. The gadol, if a community decides something is worth taking on, it's not necessarily wrong or lashon hara for them to do it, and that what offends us in that is not necessarily legitimate because it's that civil liberties, they can't tell me what to do. Well, and as a Torah Jew, they really can and should. But as to the particular example of wearing a red dress at the wedding, these are our big issues nowadays. I think we have bigger fish to fry, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, and that was kind of my attitude. It actually,
so I'm sort of agreeing with you on that point, but not so much on your reaction, because it's legitimate for a community on other issues to take a stance, and sometimes a very harsh one.
It does seem like it's used. It does seem like it's a bit overused, though. I think it'd be fair to say that.
Well, maybe, and today it's particularly ineffective.
Yeah.
That's why we don't have haramim so much anymore. That's why famously they don't put people in. They don't ban books so much because then everybody reads it.
I would also argue if you're going to say that. I mean, even if you're going to say it's l'shem shemayim, I would still argue that maybe there's.
I don't know if it was l'shem shemayim. I don't know the people involved. If they're Rabbanim, I want to presume so, but maybe not. I don't know.
Okay, he wasn't saying like, like I'm gonna get you blacklisted. He was saying like, someone might tell someone, like this whole thing. It's like, come on, it's not that important. And anyone, like, why should anyone care that much that it's gonna be that big of an issue? Okay. Like the idea of, looking at socially ostracizing someone over something so low. And I mean, socially, yes, I have thought about it. There is the idea of under certain conditions, it's a valuable tool, but I think it's somewhat fair to say maybe it's a bit overused.
Just like the whole
maybe
emotional distress. It's not too different.
I know that rabbis, like parents these days, have very little leverage. Very hard to be in any position of authority nowadays. So I don't know, you do what you can. Good. All right. Good to see you.
I just want to say that there's a line which we should have used at some point, I think 2 days ago, which should have been so far, so good.
Well, what's so far, so good?
So far, so good.
Oh, Eitan. Wow.
Missed opportunity.
Oy vey. No, I'm trying to do something with Iyov, but it doesn't work. Okay. Yeah,
I'm not sure why I'm blanking here.
Was that so far was the name of the third friend?
Oh.
Yeah. Also took me a second until I realized what you were doing. But then you had that, I just told the pun, unmistakable grin, so I figured it must have been. I get that grin myself. Alayla Tov, Zoraim Tovim, good to see you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.